in 3 words. The best stories.
What are some of the best things going on right now?
The best stories
are authentic.
They are relevant.
thought-provoking.
Emotional is probably the first
The best
one for me.
stories are humorous,
Shareable.
They
I think
are
emotional.
entertaining.
They're unique.
I would
And
say
relevant.
inspiring,
Honest.
real
Colorful,
stories that are appropriate today.
and
And
Just
they're
say
emotional.
those are some of the best stories.
Hello and welcome into Storyteller at SiriusXM Studio at the Win, live from NAB. I'm Sky Muller, and I'm so excited for today's Storyteller as we brought in 2 absolute badass storytellers, Jolie Roberts and Dr. Jen Welter. Welcome into Storyteller.
Thank you. It's
thank
great
you.
to be here.
Let's get it started with learning just a little bit about why we're all here, why we're all connected, who we are. Dr. Jen, why don't you start us off with just give us a quick little snippet on your story and just a little bit of how you've been a trailblazer.
You know, I lovingly say that football has been the love of my life, right? From richer to poorer, sickness and in health. And at times it felt like only death could pull us apart. And knowing that I played women's pro football because we couldn't afford the professional, the richer or poorer part was probably the part that most people are seeing now in the rise of women's sports. But for me, it was 15 years of women's pro football. Then had the opportunity to become the first woman to play running back in men's pro football. And from there, then was asked to coach and then became the first woman to coach in the NFL. And since then have coached in the AAF, the XFL, you name it, I've been there, and started Grrridiron Girls, which was the first national movement for girls in flag.
Just trailblazing every step of the way. I hear a lot of firsts that come with your name, which is always just a sign of how badass you are and how you're setting up the future for women to see women in these roles that they want to be in. And you had a great post on LinkedIn the other day. It wasn't great, honestly. Because it was a girl that was crying because she didn't think she could play football. So not great from that sense, but a good post that you got out there and said, hey, let's rally around this woman and show her you can play football. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today is just investing in storytelling.
Well, I think storytelling is so powerful, right? Because you can do things that are epic, but if no one knows, how much do you get to shift culture, right? For me, storytelling is where we take what's been done and show someone else that it can be done again, right? And that there's more to do. We talked a little bit about the U.S. national team. I had the opportunity to play on the very first women's U.S. national tackle football team, right? We went over to Stockholm, Sweden, played 3 games in a week. Now, for those of you who know, I've coached in the NFL. We complain about a Thursday game. So just imagine 3 games in a week. People are pretty upset. And we beat the world 201-0.
And the 0 is important, right? Because
0 is important because I'm on defense. Yeah, I mean, I'm on defense. That's what we do.
We got some good images too, showcasing the defense there.
Yes, that's why the quarterback didn't, she may not have wanted to play anymore because you don't want to necessarily be there. Quarterback, running back, I had the opportunity to make a lot of tackles. But to come back as a player for the U.S. national team in America's game and have no one know that was the most dominant football team to have ever been fielded of any gender. That's why storytelling is so important. Because if a little girl knew that Team USA could throw on the pads and helmet and go tackle the world, wouldn't she have something else to go to those boys for? And we really do empower people through the stories that we tell.
And we always tell these epic, great stories and they become Netflix documentaries and they become these massive things. And you're talking about some of the most dominant performance I've ever seen or heard of, and nowhere to be seen, nowhere to be told, and it gets lost, right?
It does. If we don't honor like those big moments, then they don't ever get their true place in the landscape that empowers forward progress to continue to move forward. And my goal has always been, I was lucky to step into the spotlight as the first woman to coach in the NFL, but always knowing that, I stood there on the very strong shoulder pads of the women who came before me and those who played beside me and the men who opened doors when that door was previously shut. And so for me, it was the opportunity and responsibility of being first to ensure you're not the last, which means you not only have to do the job and do it well, but you need to make sure that those stories are honored so that all of the heroes, not just the one who gets the chance to step into the big spotlight, are honored, because progress doesn't happen in a vacuum and you don't do it by yourself.
Dang, and there's so much pressure in the game. And now there's this added pressure after the game to keep this story going. Jolie, I want to bring you in, hear a little bit about your story, and all this is going to tie together of the importance of storytelling, but give us a little bit of your story.
Absolutely. So I'm the vice president of domestic licensing at King Features, which is the division of Hearst that houses much of Hearst legacy IPs. So classic character brands like Popeye the Sailor Man and Olive Oyl and Flash Gordon and the Phantom. And really for us as Hearst and as King Features, it is our job to reinvent and retell the stories of these classic character brands. Many of these brands are close to 100 years old or over 100 years old. And so, we want to keep these brands alive for another 100 years. So where are we as storytellers? How are we explaining who these brands are and what audiences are we targeting to bring in the next generation of fans for these classic character brands?
It's interesting, the dynamic, because Dr. Jen's talking about writing the first story of a lot of things that are happening, first female NFL coach, and you're talking about maybe rewriting some really old IP.
That's absolutely right. So I think a great example from our catalog of IP is the Popeye and Olive Oyl brand. Popeye is 96 years old, which a lot of people don't realize.
Looks good for 96.
Yes. And Olive Oyl is actually 106 years old.
Oh, she looks even better. Okay, I'm Team Olive Oyl. Yep.
She has a really interesting backstory. Her brand came around 10 years before Popeye did. And before Popeye, Olive had her own life. She was a singer and a dancer and a comedian, and she was always unapologetic. She was this strong, independent woman. She ended up getting absorbed into Popeye's story and being depicted in some different ways, as this damsel in distress. And so what we have done and really invested in over the past couple of years is extracting Olive Oyl's story and creating her own brand for her to stand on outside of the Popeye brand. So we're doing a lot of things right now in the sports and gaming space. We really see sports and gaming as the vehicle to retell the stories and reintroduce the stories of these classic character brands to target and bring in the next generation of fans. So last week we launched a partnership with Benfica. Popeye and Olive are now the official spokespeople of Benfica. You can see the video in the back. So that's been a lot of fun. We have a partnership launching next week within the sports space, where there will be a location-based entertainment immersive experience for kids at the F1 Bahrain race. And so there's a lot of things within the sports world that we have been doing to reach the next generation and introduce who these classic character brands are. I will say it's the same for the gaming space.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear that, and hear that when you invest in storytelling, it's important to get it in front of the next generation that's going to be, either looking to who can I be, what can I be, and Dr. Jen, you have great experience in that, and first female NFL coach in Madden, and how important is that so that women can see that and you can see, okay, I can be a coach as I'm playing video games as a kid.
I feel like we can connect a lot of dots here. Right now, I feel like I might be a little bit of Olive Oyl in my spirit and Popeye in the arms, right? Like, did you put them both together? Is that how I got this, Jolie? I mean, I'm going to flex my Popeye muscles, but really lean into also, what I love about Olive Oyl is she was always so fun.
Yes.
She didn't have this image of she had to be perfect. And I think that makes her very relatable.
Yes.
You know, I remember, and I'll jump back to the video in a second, like, I remember the weight of title was something that I really struggled with. Like, what does this woman who's done this barrier breaking thing have to be? Right. And it was actually my players who were like, Coach, they don't know you're funny. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, no, people are scared of you. And I'm like, why? I'm like, I'm so nice. And they're like, yeah, they don't know that. They're kind of terrified. So like, it was encouragement from my players to be able to not just be a title, but to be the very real human that I am underneath, and to let people see that, yeah, you can do this big badass thing. And you can also just be a real human who has her up days and her down days and her quirks and her funny stuff. And like, I am a big kid at heart. So to really get permission from people that I was in the trenches with to fully own myself and my story was something that was important. And I think as we look at whether it's what, you know, Jolie's talking about this great IP that has this rich history that you want to honor and modernize at the same time, right? Like, that can be the same character, but in new situations. I think that's where the magic is. And for me, there were not a lot of places in real life at that time that a girl could look at football and say, I want to do that, or I want to be her. And I had the first opportunity, which, you know, I said, I'm a big kid. So to do Minecraft worlds that were Coach Jen, because approximately half of gamers are girls. And yet there are very few instances where girls can be the protagonists of the story. So you can play the game, but you can't be the hero of the game. And whether it's in a virtual reality or reality, it's so important to be able to show girls, not only can she play, but she can go and be the hero. Mm-hmm. And working with Minecraft really then led to being in Madden. And I got to see what you're talking about, the integration between sports and esports, where there were kids who may or may not have been around at the time when I was the first female to coach in the NFL, but they're like, yo, she's in Madden. Mm-hmm. And the legend is definitely much taller than the human, because in Madden, they made me really tall. Like, I was the same size as the players. So I would meet kids and they'd be like, you look like that coach, but she's like a lot bigger than you. And I'd be like, do you play Madden? And they're like, yeah, team shutdown. They can't score, they can't win. Obviously a nod to Team USA when we defeated the world 201-0. So Team Shutdown was my team, but that was something the kids really loved. And they're like, yeah, I know who you are.
Team Shutdown. I love
Team
that.
Shutdown.
And Jolie, you mentioned the importance of the gaming side as well, because that's where the next generation is living.
Absolutely.
Dr. Jen mentioned Minecraft. Roblox is a massive platform out there right now as well.
Absolutely. So we really have, when we look at gaming as a vehicle to reintroduce these character brands to younger generations and fans, we see it come through in a three-pronged approach. The first is investing in in-game integration. So tag teaming Olive Oyl with other protagonist women within the gaming space in other video games and having them interact and retell her story around her brand. The second approach is really to create original games. So having the Popeye game or the Phantom game, we're actually launching the Phantom Art of Play game very soon, which we're very excited about. So that's original game titles. And then the third area is really within virtual worlds and playing within the creator economy. So we are going into development for Roblox worlds right now, Fortnite worlds, and really starting to invest in the storytelling around who these classic character brands are within the virtual world space, and also how are they interacting with the creator economy.
Oh, wow.
So actually, when you mentioned the Minecraft integrations that you've done, that presents a really interesting opportunity maybe for us to potentially have you do a special one-time event within the Olive Oyl, Roblox, or Fortnite Fortnite world. And
Absolutely. I want to teach Olive Oyl football. I think she would love it. I bet she has great hands.
I bet you she
has
does.
great hands.
And part of her brand is being this very nimble character. You know, she really lends herself to the sports, fitness, and wellness space very much. She is unapologetic, and you know, her whole tagline is Olive Oyl is who she is. She's a woman of today. So how can we integrate her with other strong women, maybe like Dr. Jen, within some of these virtual worlds?
I think because she's so slippery, she would be a heck of a pass rusher. I want to see her as an edge rusher, and you know, maybe give the quarterback some problems. I could see her fitting in my defense.
The frame works too. A little taller, right? I mean, I've seen the image of her walking the runway, right, as well. So
yeah, absolutely. So in addition to the sports and gaming space, we have really developed out our product licensing program for Olive Oyl, Popeye, all of our brands. But you'll see that actually we did a collaboration with Moschino and Olive Oyl. So a Olive Oyl line came out for Moschino, and she walked the runway in Milan Fashion Week. So that was an exciting moment for her and the brand. And I just hope that at 105 years old, I'm also walking the runway. I think we can all.
Yeah, I think that's something we can all strive for.
I'm punching my ticket for that one. But what I see even in that, right, that she's walked the runway. And, you know, when we talk about athletes now, you're really seeing the integration of fashion, right? And the tunnel becoming such a fashion moment. Imagine her like doing the walk up to the locker room and then hitting the field Olive Oyl style. I can already picture it. I'm in.
I mean, we work a lot in women's sports and like the WNBA, and how much it's just as much the walk-in fit is a big poll that people love to do, is highlight what's the latest in fashion. And that's driving. There may be people that, you know, connect with Olive Oyl on the fashion side. That's one audience. And then there's a whole nother audience that's connecting on the gaming side. It's just, you're bringing all these different audiences and fans together.
That's absolutely right. I think a really important piece of this too is, as storytellers, we have to be really careful with how we portray the brand, right? We need to know who these brands are and who they're not. So when we're designing the narrative and story around these classic characters and showing the next generation who they are, we don't want to overemphasize specific parts of them over others. You know, for Olive Oyl, she is this strong, independent woman. She also is very romantic, and she appreciates that, and she's soft in some ways. So, you know, as storytellers, I'm not trying to put her in this boss bitch light, if you will, and overplay that. We need to do justice to her brand as we introduce it to new fans, especially younger fans.
Dr. Jen, that goes right to what you were saying earlier, right? Of like, you aren't just this intimidating, fierce football player. You're a funny person as well. And you can be both things.
Right. I think that's, you know, this one-dimensional image that we don't get exposed to if we only see one person in one light, right? Like as a football player, I want you to see that person.
Yeah.
That is all you get. I am going to sack the quarterback. She's going to regret her life choices for thinking she should step on the field with me. It's a thing. But off the field, I am also all of these other things. And that's where we find that in the multifaceted perspectives of any character, you know, we can engage. I mean, one of the, you know, it's so interesting to me when we look at our life's journey. Like one of the biggest stories about me was actually when I coached in the NFL and was struggling with, you know, the weight, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, I mean, the night before my first game, I'm telling you, I was going through all of the possible iterations, what would happen when I ran out on the field. And most of them are not good. A lot of them involved face planting on national television. Like there was that. But I found my peace in writing notes to all of my linebackers the night before the first game and then leaving them in their lockers. Now, I thought the locker room was like Vegas, and we're in Vegas, so what happens here stays here, right? But I never thought that story would make it out to the world. It was what I did because that's what I would have wanted. I wanted the voices in their head to be mine. And what happened was one of my linebackers, Kevin Minter, told a reporter about those notes. And he said in his entire playing career, he'd never had a coach care like that. And that story became the one where they called me the noteworthy coach. And I think, you know, it's so fun to find a character space and a character, like you've said, with Olive Oyl, where, you know, you can be all of these things and you can also be, you know, someone who would sit down and write notes in, you know, in the biggest boys club up in the mall. And I think that those places are where we, you know, where we kind of fall in love with, whether it's a person or a journey or a character. And it's not just that one dimension.
Wow. Jolie, as you're writing or rewriting some of like Olive Oyl's, you know, next chapter a little bit, I want to get into like the process of how do you think about who can she be or who can she become? Because I just think that's fascinating, and there's so much thought that goes into it, as you mentioned, of like, we do have to protect who she was or still is, but also rewrite a little bit to it. What's that process like as you're thinking through different activations to put her into and different worlds to put her in?
Absolutely. So I think it goes back to the point about not emphasizing specific parts of her more than others. When we're looking at who she is as a brand, she is this, in many ways, she is clumsy and she's very quirky. And when we look for whether it's actors within the entertainment space or influencers or even writing who she is going to be and how she's going to be portrayed in a video game, we want to balance out the fact that she is this very lanky kind of quirky character, but she also is unapologetic. She's a woman of today. She's relatable and she knows what she wants and what she's going to do. So it's a very careful balance when we're storyboarding exactly how Olive Oyl is going to be portrayed. And then also, how is she going to speak to specific demographics of fans? You know, in the video game space, many times we are targeting Gen Alpha or young Gen Z fans. And, you know, the messaging that we want her to get across in these pieces of entertainment is to also really empower these young women and boys, by the way. So being very careful with the narrative for that specific demographic that we're trying to reach.
It's fascinating. Dr. Jen, you have your A Day in the Life camp, you have the Grrridiron Girls. What messages are you getting out to that generation of, you know, the future women coaches in the NFL or whatever they want to coach in?
I think one of the things that you'll notice about the places that I love to invest my time and the relationships that I like to be in are ones that look at the world not as it is, but how it can be. And where can we take places and spaces and kind of, you know, reinvent them. Grrridiron Girls, you know, like you mentioned, Lena, earlier, I started that because I was struggling a little bit at that time with where I fit in the game, right? Like there weren't a lot of places, you know, there weren't a lot of women in the men's world. And, you know, was I supposed to do this or that? And what I realized when I was struggling with it was no matter what, I could be the woman that I needed and didn't have for all those girls. So I just started Grrridiron Girls with the idea that I wanted to be that woman for every girl who felt like the game didn't see her, for every girl that felt like she was, you know, out of her league or on, you know, in a field that was for boys or whatever, and that we could utilize the sport referred to as the final frontier for women in sports to show that when we do this, can't we not only change the game, but shift culture through the game, right? Like if this is the thing we're not supposed to do, then when we do this, don't we show that girls can do anything? And so that was really it. And I always tell the girls, like, let your game speak. Let your game speak louder than than social media, than, your critics, than this. And, because when you're good, someone will find you. Mm-hmm. And then a day in the life, very similarly, I had so many women who were like, I think I'd like football, but I never got to learn it, or, they don't teach us, or this, that, and the other. And I was like, well, I can teach you football, because they were being locked out of business conversations, right? If you're in the box, or, you're in your work and they're talking about fantasy and you don't get it, and you feel like you can't engage in those conversations, you're missing business deals. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, you know what, ladies, let's freaking go. Like, I will teach you everything from how to read a playbook, why football is full contact chess, and everything from how to catch, throw, and how to tackle. Every woman should know how to tackle. It's not just a football imperative, it's life imperative. No kidding. And doing those scary things, those things where we've been locked out of, it not only teaches you that thing, but it gives you the confidence to stretch not only, how other people see you, but how you see yourself.
That's massive. And that transcends sport too. Like you mentioned, It goes into boardrooms, it goes into the business side of it. And I think that's so awesome. I love when you mentioned like shifting culture. And Jolie, I just want to know, like, how fun is it to be able to, obviously you're a badass yourself and pioneering and trailblazing in your space, but also being able to take this IP and shift culture with how you rewrite their stories that's kind of a fun task. It sounds like
it's incredibly exciting. People ask me all the time, do you like your job? And my answer is, I love my job. And what I love even more is telling stories that impacts culture, that gets to the heart of how people feel and experience content. And that's really what it is for all of us. And I also think that it's important to not necessarily just get pigeonholed into that exact project. Mm-hmm. We have to do, as storytellers, there's a packaging exercise here, and we have to know when we should ask for help, what we can do to elevate the project or the brand that we're speaking about. Hearst does such a great job of that in so many ways. King Features, we have, an amazing catalog of different classic character IP, but within the Hearst family, we also have a massively important and big magazine division. We have men's health and women's health, Elle Magazine, many Good Housekeeping, many different titles. We have a really strong, impactful news division. And so Hearst is really playing in all different spaces to support exercises around creating impactful content and telling stories that are going to shift and change the way that audiences feel.
Yeah.
And so I think that's massively important.
Oh, it's huge. Dr. Jen, where do you think we're talking all about investing in storytelling. Yeah. Where does that investment need to go? What would you like to see out there of what more stories need to be told? Like, how can we push this forward?
Well, one of my goals has always been really to make sure that story was at the forefront of everything that I did, right? Because again, that's how you keep progress going, right? Like, momentum has to be more than a moment. It has to be a movement, and it has to have multiple points of stickiness. So of course, like, I mentioned Team USA 2010 because we're seeing flag football now, and the rise of flag football is unstoppable. It'll be a pro sport soon. It's going to be an NCAA sport. It's going to be in the Olympics in 2028. And all of those girls, thankfully, a lot of them, a lot of the top girls came through Grrridiron Girls, but I want them to know the strong shoulders that they stand on. I want them to know that the original women's tackle football league, the NWFL, played 50 years ago. Right? And that women are still paying to play, even to represent the USA, right? So for girls to really know how good they've got it, they've got they've got to be aware of the journey, that it didn't start here, that it's not always going to be easy. In fact, to do good things, it's going to be dang hard. And so I want to see more of, you know, kind of the women who have broken barriers, have that investment in storytelling. I mean, I put together the first women's history of football museum earlier this year, and we launched it at Super Bowl, called Kick Glass. And I got to reach out to so many iconic women who I looked up to. And I want to see those stories told. I want to see Team USA honored. And, you know, one day I think there should be a movie about me too. I'm just going to throw it out there since there's going to be people watching. Maybe Hearst Media wants to do it. I mean, I'm just saying.
You know, I think that you have taken a page from Olive Oyl's playbook.
Oh.
That is, in some ways, that's exactly what we're trying to do. Olive Oyl, 105 years ago, it was not okay to have the type of life that she did. Olive Oyl is a character that had a child without being married. And so she did so many things that where she was seen and really was a trailblazer for as women. And so really extracting her story and showing young women and men and audiences worldwide that you can do all of these things and be who you want and tell the stories that you want. That is our job as storytellers.
And I just have to say, I think Olive Oyl would have also feared face planting when running out onto the NFL field for the first time. And she might have written some notes about it. But I mean, I think those are the things that take an iconic character and make it relatable and make it lovable and make you say, you know what, I see myself there. Because so many times we don't. So many places in the world, and especially like, you know, social media often shows just the highlights.
Yep.
But not the real life, and certainly not the lowlights. And I think great storytellers are really honest, right? Like they invite you to say, you know what, I got here, but it wasn't pretty, wasn't polished, it wasn't perfect. And
But there's a path for you.
But there's a path. And we can have a lot of fun along the way. And so, you know, I love the journey of even being able to lean in. Like I'll tell you, Jolie's been a good friend of mine for a long time. And we so geeked out on thinking about all of the ways that like Olive Oyl could be like, I'm like, oh my God, like I think we would be best friends.
This is a new part of our relationship, right? So we met several years ago while I was at Twitch, and I did Dr. Jen's Thursday Night Football creator deal. So Dr. Jen was on Thursday Night Football. She was one of our commentators. And so that's how we originally met. But from there, it really just took off into all different types of projects. And now we have Olive Oyl.
Yes, I love it. The story evolves. The story keeps going. And I love what you said, Dr. Jen, too, because I do think it's important to show both sides, because how many people and feel that imposter syndrome, and maybe there's a girl that wants to play football but she's like, I don't know if I'm good enough, or I don't, and to be able to say like, hey, I felt that same thing and look where I got. I think that's so critical as showing both sides of the coin there. You know what,
I will put a pin in imposter syndrome for anybody who's listening. Imposter syndrome means that you're trying to be something that you're not. And the more we can be honest about who we are and where we really want to be in the world, the less likely we feel like we can't add up. So if you can lean into the authenticity, if you can lean into, like you said, okay, here's this woman, she's trailblazer, this character's trailblazer, but she's also clumsy. And, you know, does she have a sense of humor? And did it take, you know, for me, like even having some of the biggest guys in the toughest sport to say, you know what, people are a little intimidated by you. And like, we know you're funny, like just let them see you're funny. And I was like, wow, I can do that. Right. Because I struggled with the spotlight. And the spotlight is bright and it's not always kind. And we all go through it. And it's natural. So I think it's a place where we can experience pain, but we can also find a whole lot of power.
That's amazing. This has been so much fun. This has been, I love each of your stories individually. I love your story together and what we're going to see in the future with you two working together. Olive Oyl's transformation, rebranding, rewriting, but not losing side of her past, and Dr. Jen, the same with you, of your obviously trailblazing path, but also what's next for you and what's ahead for you. This has been awesome. So thank you both for coming on Storyteller.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Take care, everyone.